Well, the UN nuclear chief, Rafael Grossi, said that the above-ground section of the Natanz facility was destroyed. He made that remark at an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. Grossi said the main centrifuge facility underground did not appear to have been hit, but the loss of the power could have damaged the infrastructure. The ambassadors of Iran and Israel also speaking to the council, neither appearing to back down. Here's a brief clip of what each had to say.
We strongly and unequivocally condemn the barbaric and criminal attack. A series of targeted assassinations were against senior military officials, nuclear scientists, and innocent civilians. So far, 78 people, including senior military officials, have been martyred and over 320 others injured. The overwhelming majority of them civilians, including women and children. Iran will respond decisively and proportionately to these acts of aggression at a time, in a place, and by means of its choosing.
As we speak, hundreds of ballistic missiles are targeting civilian population in Israel. Just imagine if Iran had a nuclear warheads today. What would have happened? We are determined to finish the job and to make sure that Iran will not have the ability to threaten Israel. That is a promise, and we will fulfill it.
Oh, joining us from Colchester in the United Kingdom is Natasha Lindstaedt, Deputy Dean and Professor at the University of Essex. Hello to you, Professor. Thank you for speaking to Paris Direct. There's a fine line between deterrence and escalation, isn't there? Do you have confidence that either Israel or Iran will be able to adhere to it?
No, I think actually in this case, Israel under Netanyahu is seizing this moment as he sees it as sort of a once-in-a-generation type of moment that Israel could really bring Iran to its knees if it can continue these attacks and disable Iran's air defense and its missile capabilities. And it's already done a lot of damage to that. We see that it's crippled its arsenal of ballistic missiles. Iran was really caught off guard. There's been damage, as the report already mentioned, to its nuclear enrichment facility, the largest one that it has in Natanz. So I think Israel is trying to take advantage of this particular moment when Iran is already weak, its economy is weak, it's lost control over Syria. Hezbollah has become severely weakened after its war with Israel, its conflict with Israel. So from Israel's standpoint, it's trying to take this moment to get the upper hand with Iran. And I think it's actually hoping to go as far as to push for regime change.
In regime change, what assurances does Israel's Prime Minister have, Benjamin Netanyahu, that whatever entity would fill the power vacuum in Iran would be less antagonistic towards Israel?
I mean, there's no guarantee that whatever comes next will be any better. I mean, Iran has been mostly ruled by authoritarian regimes. Prior to the Ayatollah taking over, of course, you had the Shah, who was also authoritarian, but more pro-Western. But there's no guarantees about what is going to come in its place. It could be something that is even more extreme. And from Israel's standpoint, this current regime is incredibly anti-Israel. It poses a threat to Israel's existence, and it wants to push for something further. I mean, it could do this by attacking its water and energy plant facilities, for example. If it were to do that, this could lead to destabilizing protests in Iran, which is already a regime that, for many in Iran, is not considered to be particularly legitimate. But again, there are forces within Iran that could take power, and if, let's just say, there is some sort of regime change, and it might not result in anything that is particularly better from Israel's standpoint.
Yeah, and I also wondering about this. Iran had said, when we look at the concerns here about a broader conflict, Iran warned that if the U.S., the U.K., or France use their bases or ships in the region, they could be targeted if they assist Israel in any of this. How much of this is fear-mongering? How much of this is saber-rattling? And how much of it do you take for a credible a warning?
So it is a possibility, of course. Iran has taken risks in the past. I think for the most part, the regime under Khamenei is in a rock and a hard place. They're in a very difficult situation because they don't want to escalate things further so that it gets to the point that there is actually regime change, as I mentioned. I mean, that's their biggest focus, is on their own survival. And so they are trying to deter Western powers, particularly the US, from getting involved. But at the same time, Iran's military capacity has been severely damaged. With all of the ballistic missiles that have been targeted. They were trying to send about 1,000 ballistic missiles over to Israel, and it ended up being around 100. So they don't really even have the capacity to pose a threat, the same type of threat that they had in the past.
And domestically for Israel, that government, very unpopular as well. A lot of people would like to see that government out of power. How much pressure is on Netanyahu amid the war in Gaza? And also, this is a leader that has at the time, previously, used crises or conflicts to try and stay in power.
Certainly for the Israeli public, they are weary and exhausted by the conflicts. And I think if you look at the polling, it's sort of a mixed picture. Netanyahu gained more support in its war on Lebanon, on Hezbollah. That received a majority of public support. But right now, a majority of the Israeli public main focus is to get the hostages back at any way possible. And so they may be concerned of this escalation taking place in Iran. How is that going to undermine the process of getting these hostages back? So I think it's a mixed picture there. But one of the things that we do know is that with this right-wing government that Netanyahu leads, he's been pushed even further into a more hawkish, aggressive direction. And he seems to be moving in the way to please this side of his cabinet.
But do you think also maybe mindful of Washington? I mean, Iran accusing U.S. of being complicit in these attacks. The U.S. said they were not complicit. They were aware of them beforehand, but that they were not complicit. Do you think Netanyahu would have acted without Washington's consent?
Yes, I do. I think that he has reached the point where he feels like he needs to act unilaterally, that there won't be any kind of repercussions, even if he does. We've seen both the U.S. and Israel sort of do their own thing from time to time, because Netanyahu did not want Trump to remove the sanctions on Syria, and he did it anyways. During Trump's most recent visit to the Middle East, he did not visit Israel. Israel, of course, is still a very close ally to the U.S. Trump and Netanyahu are still close. But I feel that under Netanyahu, he wants to do what he needs to do. Remember, Israel never let the U.S. know about its attack on Hassan Nasrallah, the former leader, of course, of Hezbollah, who was killed. So Israel, the U.S. doesn't have as much leverage on Israel unless it wants to really decide to change the financial situation, to stop the over $3 billion in military aid that it's giving it. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, with the U.S. government somewhat divided on this issue. And so for Netanyahu, he feels like he can do what he wants to do, and he's not going to face too much backlash either from the U.S. or even from some Western European U.S. allies as well.
Yeah, so notably Britain, France, and Germany were all calling for restraint here. Does that mean there's no leverage?
Not really. I don't think there is much leverage. I don't see them being able to control what Israel wants to do. As I mentioned earlier, they see this as a moment that they've got to take advantage of, that Iran is so incredibly weak at this moment that if they don't strike now and really pummel and attack Iran in this moment, then when is the next moment going to be? Because as an earlier report had mentioned, they can kind of quickly get back their production capabilities, keep pursuing their nuclear program, their enrichment program. They've accelerated this. and they pose a danger from Israel's standpoint if this continues to accelerate. So the timing of this is really interesting. The U.S. was in the midst of negotiations with Iran about this, the nuclear program, and trying to pursue some kind of nuclear deal. And Israel came in as the spoiler. The U.S. was trying to delay what Israel wanted to do with this attack, and they were not able to deter Israel and Netanyahu in this instance. Instead, Israel came in with these strikes using both covert operations and traditional conventional weapons. And so for them, they see this as a really key opportunity here.
Professor, thank you so much for your time. Professor Natasha Lindstaedt speaking to us there. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.